Hello, and welcome to the Capital Gains Show. My name is Aaron, and in this show I defend capitalism and criticize socialism. Today I want to do a video that talks a little bit about hierarchies. I want to talk about the definition of hierarchies, why they are inescapable in one form or another, and I also want to talk about how the concept of hierarchies actually defends the notion that capitalism is the fullest expression of anarchism, and that hierarchies, the understanding of them, is detrimental to the notion that socialism or communism can be anarchistic at all. First off, I want to tell you what the definition of hierarchy is. This is the definition that you just get when you Google definition of hierarchy. It says, a group of persons or things organized into successive ranks or grades, with each level subordinate to the one above. Now, some examples of hierarchy could be a boss and an employee. Another example could be a consumer and a producer. Another example could even be a president and a citizen. Another example could be a teacher and a student. Another example can be a parent and a child. I think you're starting to get the point. Now, it is impossible to have a society without any hierarchies in it. Society is based on peaceful interactions and exchanges between humans, and the social fabric is comprised of those interactions and agreements and cooperative elements between humans. If you want to eliminate all hierarchies, like some leftists confusingly proclaim, you're going to end up with a society with no interactions. Every human interaction or trade or instance of cooperation involves some sort of hierarchy with successive rank or grade. Otherwise, if there's no successive ranks or grades, if there's no hierarchy, if there's no imbalance of power in any way, shape, or form between two people, then they're not really going to interact, because there's nothing for them to arbitrage. There's no power differences or value differences that they're going to exchange and resolve. So hierarchies are impossible to eliminate in society. The question is, are you going to have good hierarchies or bad hierarchies, right? Now, my buddy and esteemed fellow anarchist Brenton Lengel did a 30-second video about the definition of anarchy. I'm going to link to that video in the description below. Even though Brenton Lengel is an anarcho-communist, he is not a capitalist. He gives what I believe is a very good definition of anarchy. What he says is that anarchism is the rejection of all unjust hierarchies. He further explains that the only just hierarchies are the hierarchies that exist with the satisfaction of all involved parties, basically the consent or approval of all involved parties. So what he does is he differentiates good and bad hierarchies, or just and unjust hierarchies, by saying the good ones are the ones that are consensual and agreed upon, and the bad ones that do not meet the burden of proof for existence are the ones that the involved parties don't agree to, don't consent to, don't condone. So I think that's a great definition. Brenton really nails it. What he doesn't seem to realize, though, is that he's actually making room for capitalism in his definition, and what he's doing is he's pointing out that you can have a capitalist mode of production, you can have private property rights, you can have wage labor and all those kind of things, absentee landlordism, in an anarchist model. And in fact, if you want to pursue anarchy and get rid of the state, or at least minimize the state, the best way to go about that is by only allowing, the just hierarchies, the consensual hierarchies, and demolishing or dismantling the unjust hierarchies. Now, the just hierarchies are simply the ones that people agree to. So if people consent to a wage labor position, if people consent to absentee landlordism, if people consent to investing in things that they don't work on, or working on things that they don't own, then that is a just hierarchy. It's consensual. It's voluntary. It's agreed upon by all the involved parties. So there you go. It's a social interaction. It's society. It's anarchy. It's peace and happiness, and everyone benefits all around. So really, the key factor here that I want to get to about the hierarchy question is not whether or not a hierarchy exists. It's whether or not the hierarchy is voluntary or not. It's whether or not the hierarchy is consensual or not. It's the consensual nature of an interaction or an agreement or a partnership between people that makes it just or unjust. It's the difference between charity and theft. If you consent to give someone money, then you're giving them charity. If someone just takes it from you without your consent, well, then they're stealing from you. That's the difference between the good and the bad interactions. And that's why the fullest expression of anarchism is going to be an anarchy that makes room for private property rights. It doesn't mandate private property rights. You can also have public property, you can have communal property, you can have worker-owned co-ops in anarchy, absolutely. But you're also going to have to make room for consensual instances of private property rights. You're going to have to make room for consensual instances of wage labor, of people working on things they don't own, of people owning things that they don't work on, of rent, of ownership, of private property, of public property, all those things. So the only way to eliminate a voluntary hierarchy is with an involuntary hierarchy. So even if you want to get rid of hierarchies, even if you're a leftist that confusedly thinks he can get rid of all hierarchies and you can't, you're going to have to employ and utilize and wield an involuntary hierarchy to forcibly get rid of all those voluntary hierarchies, all those parents-child relationships, all the student-teacher relationships, all the consumer-producer relationships, all the boss and employee relationships. The only way to do it, you're gonna have to use an involuntary hierarchy, and of course, the involuntary hierarchy is the one that doesn't meet the burden of proof. The involuntary hierarchy is the one that is unjust. So when you try to forcibly eliminate consensual instances of private property rights and of wage labor and of capitalism, what you're doing is you're doing an unjust action by definition. Thanks for watching.